Hi guys, I am once again back. That's right, you probably thought I was dead and, well, considering how long it's been since the last upload, yeah, you're justified in thinking that. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've just been hella busy lately. Like sort of the I don't have a life at the moment busy, but I'm still gonna try and upload when I can. I'm not gonna lie to you and say I'm gonna upload as regularly as I used to because that would just be a straight up lie on my end. Please still subscribe for more content when it eventually comes out. But besides that, today I thought, you know what, a great way to come back as always. I did this before. I'm gonna be talking about the music I'm listening to. This is kind of like a what's in my bag, but there's no bag. In fact, there's nothing physical about it because I'm listening to everything on Spotify at the moment. So yeah, we're just gonna jump right in. But just before I get started, write down below what have you been listening to lately and give it a rating. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and let's do this. So for starters, I'd have to talk about one of the biggest releases for me this year, and that is of course Whitechapel with their album Kin. This has been an ongoing thing I've been listening to ever since the album dropped, because of course after the masterpiece that was The Valley, the excitement and the hype for this album was all there. We were all waiting for it, and when I listened to it, you know what, it was absolutely amazing. Not gonna lie, was it as strong as The Valley? I don't know. I think it was pretty close second for me, but as I've said prior, it was going to be impossible to beat something that's almost perfect, if not perfect in itself. I will say the writing sometimes for me didn't feel as strong as The Valley, but the storytelling was still there. This very emotional roller coaster of Phil Bozeman, once again going back to that time period when he was a kid, but this time talking about the aftermath of losing his mom. He's all alone now, he's living with his grandparents if I'm right, and growing up in that sort of adolescence mind that, you know what, who knows how dark it was in there. Very emotional all the way through, having some moments with tracks like Orphan where it's very literal what he's trying to convey, and overall very emotional, very powerful album as always. My only complaint really, if I'm being honest, was I think the drums, because this time around we had Alex Rudinger on the drum kit. Now Alex is a ridiculously hard-hitting, consistent drummer, and that was amazing. However, I did feel like that was sort of taking away from the emotional aspect of the album a bit, especially on the quieter bits that could have done with a bit more dynamic set of drumming. But besides that, I still love the album and I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10. Moving on, we have Rivers of Nile with The Work. And going back in my mind, remembering when I first heard this band, it felt like very much straight up technical death metal to some extent. Now, they've evolved a lot since then with their previous album, which I will say put it here because I can't remember the name right now, showing that the band has a lot more depth, a lot more interesting songwriting than your average tech death band, incorporating soul music, funk music and sometimes, and of course jazz with the introduction of the beautiful saxophone into their repertoire. And with this album, it continues with that. It felt a lot like a 70s like hard rock metal album to a lot of times, with the guitar solos reminding me of, you know, stuff straight out from Guns N' Roses or Motley Crue, and a lot more slower moments, which I actually really appreciated the more I listened to it. Granted, this album still had its heavier moments, but it was definitely a lot more on the chiller side overall. But overall, really cool album, and it was definitely one that grew on me over time. It wasn't the first time like sort of I love it. After the third, fourth listen, I understood where they were coming from, and I really enjoyed it, warts and all. And with that, I gave it a 7 out of 10. As we progress, we move more into the deathcore scene, and this time we have a bit more of like a standard deathcore, djentcore, you know, djent album, and that is Sentinels with Collapse by Design. Now for me, this was the first time ever hearing about this band, and my friend kept prompting me to listen to it, saying it's really heavy, it's really powerful, and I can agree, it's very heavy. It's very goddamn heavy. The best way to describe this, it's like Meshuggah mixed with a bit more deathcore at some parts, and even moments where I thought it was like straight out from like Car Bomb as well. It was heavy. Now, my opinion of gencore is a bit 50-50 because I find that sometimes they all end up sounding the same and they opt to try and do the same things over and over and over and over and over. But there was definitely moments on this album where I thought there was some unique parts that I really appreciated. Granted, I still think this album was a bit, you know, hit and miss sometimes because they kept changing riff after riff after riff. I did find myself not knowing when one track ended and the next track started, and that kind of threw me off. It kind of also made it so that I couldn't really identify one track from the next, and that was a bit annoying. but I still think as a project, it's heavy, it's fast. It kind of reminded me of the band From Sorrow to Serenity as well, so that's kind of cool. The mix was solid, it was clean. Sometimes I did feel the mix was also a bit robotic because it was so crispy and so quantized, but still, it was a fun ride. And I'll be giving that 6 out of 10. Moving on, we have probably the most insane release that came out that I've been listening to lately, and that is Archspire. You probably know Archspire as the band that literally pushes the limits on speed with their technical veracity that comes from their drumming, their bass playing, their guitars, and uniquely, their vocals as well. If you've listened to Archspire before, you know how insane they get. The vocal performances literally sounding like a Gatling gun going non-stop. Like, it's almost as fast as like any other instrument in the band. And with this album, they continue that. They haven't changed much when it comes to songwriting. It still feels like good old Archspire, which is not a problem with me at all. However, the big change here is I felt that the mix had taken a new evolution. And in some ways it was good. It felt more mid-range heavy, which is always good because that's the section of the frequency spectrum that we hear the most, but the vocals I found to be quite buried overall in the mix. I found it a bit frustrating because in the previous album I thought the mix was downright perfect for the band, and this time around I felt I just couldn't hear the vocals clearly at all. And on top of that, the vocals have a very sort of fast pace speaking, and to not hear that, it makes it quite difficult. Granted, I love the tone of the guitars. I thought the bass was really clear. It had the iconic tech death sounding bass and the drums were sounding clear. It was just the goddamn vocals that I wish were a bit louder. And I'm gonna be honest, this is probably the first time I was disappointed in Dave Otero, the mixing engineer behind it, because usually he is a solid mixing engineer that pretty much gives 100% and provides 100% high quality mix no matter what. So this time I was like, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't great. And with all that being said, I'll be giving this album a 6 out of 10. But now finally, the big release for me that came out recently was pretty obvious. If you know this channel, you know what particular genre I like the most. And that is, of course, Villarta. Villarta finally put out a new album after who knows how many goddamn years it's been. It's one of those releases you think that, am I ever gonna hear a sequel to their previous album? And we finally got it. The album is called Måstaden under vatten.
Måstaden under vatten.
I probably butchered that pronunciation, but oh well, that's not what we're here for. We're here for the good old-fashioned Thal. And it sounded goddamn amazing. Front to back, I could not stop banging my head when I could because it's very, technical and hard to follow sometimes musically, but I loved it front to back. I also like the fact that the whole album was sung in Swedish, which I think is a nice touch. I think more bands from a different cultural background should do this because it shows some, culture to the audience and something different. I thought the entire mix was sounding massive because of course it was mixed by one Buster Odholm, who is also the drummer behind this. Of course, guitars written by Kale and Daniel, the two guitars, just bringing the absolute insanity that Thal is. And overall, just really, really loved the album. Giving it a 9 out of 10. It's been so long since I've heard this band, and my god, they came back hard. They came back strong. Particularly, I love the fact that they incorporate some of their old riffs into the new stuff as well. With, I think it's the national anthem, at least that's the translation. But yeah, the national anthem incorporates their old riffs from their previous album called Måstaden. And it was just like a nice sort of homage to that album, and to hear it, with the new mix, polished, sounded so good. God, it was a good album. And I'm still listening to it now. And I'm probably still going to listen to it well into the future. But anyway, that is what has been in my musical bag lately. What did you think of my picks? Write down below what have been your picks and what are your ratings. And besides that, thank you guys for watching. And of course, please subscribe if you enjoy this content, you like talking about music, about metal, and about mixing. And of course, I'll try my best to keep uploading new videos here and there because the channel's not dead. It's just very hectic at the moment. But besides that, thank you so much for watching. Stay hydrated, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.